This is the time when you're going to see whether they can do it or not. It looks to me like they're going to do it.
39 for Wisconsin. Wendell Washington shift. California not in the money. The Badgers just really clever. I'm going up again. 41 and a half for Wisco. 41 and a half. They own this race. Woo. Wow, what a finish. The Badgers win this race. National champions. To be our alma mater, you
Hey, I hear those tonsorial qualities.
Look at you. I love it. You walking around in your underwear these days?
Yeah, you noticed that, huh? I didn't ask for this, but it's the university shop down there. And when they gave me this, it's got all the cruise shells and stuff on it. And I was so surprised by
I
that.
suppose you didn't pick that up at the thrift shop or something.
Well, I was looking for it.
Jabba was already a legend. I came here in the summer of 1983 for a national team camp. I knew he was a crazy character in a good way. My own dad was from the Midwest and similar. They'll drive across the county to save, 55 cents on some deal because that's classic Midwest.
Jablonec, or Jabbo as everyone calls him, has been synonymous with Badger Crew. He rode at Wisconsin in the late 50s, began coaching in 1960, and took over as head coach in 68.
Turn him around and line him up. It's hard to imagine Crew without Randy Jablonec. I mean, he's been around forever.
Small circles of people knew about rowing. It wasn't the popular sport. A rower? What do you do?
Somebody has to decide to go. Here we go. Last 100 meters.
Within the university and within Madison, it's kind of well known, but like you go outside the 15-mile radius of Madison, nobody really knows that there's a rowing team. Just the geography of Wisconsin, where we are, perception-wise, it's in the middle of nowhere to everybody.
Inspiration begins with curiosity, and you wonder when this started, how it started, who were the players, who were the other players in the sport. I had about 500 pages of single-space, small font notes by year. A couple of things came to mind. One was there were a lot of characters. Sorting that down into a story was a challenge. And the deeper I got into it, it was the tip of the iceberg what I was finding.
The Badgers always make a good showing against the best college crews in the country. There's evidence that rowing as a sport was conducted as early as 1874, but it was in 1892 that the first intercollegiate Badger crew was organized.
I mean, we were one of the first schools that had a team.
Rowing was a much, much bigger deal. There's no question. You're talking a completely different era of athletics. I mean, completely different.
Rowing at Wisconsin in the early years was funded by students. They contributed money to things like the boathouse next to the Red Gym, paid for the boys' travel. You had to get a rail car that would open at the end, not at the sides, because you can't slide a shell inside of a rail car. From 1895 to about 1950, rowing was a headline sport. Andrew O'Day had been a rower in Australia. He got us started in a serious way. He was replaced by a coach named Ned Tenike, who was the son of a very famous Jim Tenike. Then came some troubled times.
It is a fearful thing to lead this great, peaceful people into war, into the most terrible and disastrous of all wars, civilization itself seeming to be in the balance.
Dad Vail had to hold the team together with no competition. Students were off at war. Nothing but intramural, no travel, no Poughkeepsie Regatta. And you might remember that there's a Dad Vail Regatta and there's a Tenike Award. So these were coaches that were well known in their day.
In the 1920s, the great American word was prosperity. Now the 30s have begun and there is a new word, depression.
Because of depressions, they had to cut back on revenues. A coach named Mike Murphy came in, and he was asked to lower his salary by 60% to continue the sport.
But to make a long story short, I figured that I donated to the future of rowing at the University of Wisconsin. I was on a salary of $125 a month. My apartment rent was $85 a month. So I had to use the money that I had in the bank at that time to make out. Then the kids and I were working on the shelves with the old pot-bellied stove during the winter when it was so damn cold. We could freeze our, you know what the monkey had. Bless their hearts. Now I'll never forget them.
That squeezed the whole economy for Ralph Nunn, who was a coxswain and a captain of the team. And he had to give up his varsity eligibility and his captain's position to be the coach. He lasted a couple of years. The guy before Norm Sanju was a guy named Walls. Alan Walls was a New Yorker. He was here during World War II, which was also an interruption and a challenge to the sport, in that Walls dropped out for 2 years and became a PT boat commander in World War II in the Navy. And Kurt Drews, who took over as the coach for those 2 years.
America prepares. All America alters its pattern of life and work to meet the demand for protection, the armaments of war that an embattled world must have if democracy is to survive.
So Walls eventually went back. He did win the first Eastern Sprints in 1946. The World War actually raised the economy substantially and pushed us through the Depression. And that's when the coaches built the team again.
Here come the Badgers out on the field, ready for the kickoff.
By 1950, football was gaining such attention that the culture changed from, and honestly, a little less exciting sport to a more exciting sport with more players and offense and defense.
Intercollegiate Regatta Day on the Ohio, but flood conditions prevail at Marietta. 2 Navy shells are sunk and their crews dunked in a series of mishaps on the raging river. The varsity race has finally started. Because of the swollen waters, the distance has been cut from 3 miles to only 2. The Huskies move into a quick lead, followed by Wisconsin, Princeton, Penn, and California. At the halfway mark, Wisconsin goes out in front. The Badgers pick up their beat and are never headed. By a length and a half, they win over Washington. A rough day on the Ohio, but a great upset win for Wisconsin's crew. Their coxswain takes a winner's dip, and the Badgers take America's rowing crown.
Wisconsin is the only major school in the Midwest which sponsors crew. Coach of the sport since 1947 is Norm Sonnu, a former Washington oarsman. But it remained for the 1951 varsity crew to provide the greatest thrill in Wisconsin rowing history by winning the Intercollegiate Rowing Association Championship at Marietta Regatta. First such honor for the Badgers.
Norm took over my life in 1954. When I say took over my life, Norm Sanju was my father or parent away from home. My affiliation with Norm and many of the people that he coached got to be very close. He says, you know, I learned to coach without talking too much. People listen more if you talk less. And that was kind of his theme. He didn't dominate a conversation. He had a few wise words to toss in, and if you weren't listening and missed it, you'd be out of the boat. It was that simple. There were no high school rowers to speak of. We were recruited out of registration lines. That's where Norm Sanju found me. I came to the university like most people without any connections to any friends or others. So I was in a new friendship thing And rowing was kind of a club. It was a group of people that you got to see every day. Coach Sanju, he said, I think you could be a good crew coach. I didn't think too much about it. I thought even less about it when I found out I would only get $400 a year for coaching. But all of a sudden, I realized that that might be kind of fun. I had a wife and 2 children. And I took the job coaching for $400 a year. I felt that I was maybe like an architect that put out a sketch and the athletes filled it in. I somehow managed 8 years of assistant coaching, but by the time 8 years was up, I was up to a whole $4,000 or something a year.
Good! Oh, backward, of course. Having a hell of a good time. Let's go.
Anybody who rowed for Jabo loves the guy. He did everything he could for rowing, from raising money to talking guys into rowing instead of something else.
I don't know how to describe it easily. When Jabo was here, it was full-on bake sale. They gave him nothing. That's why he was, and he was the perfect guy for the job. He could make it happen in ways, Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain type thing. It's perpetual energy, that's for sure.
Yes, I did a lot of crazy things, fun. I thought they were fun.
Drive it off now, let's go! Get to the top of the hill backwards. Run it backward, not sideways, backwards, so you'll work your thighs and legs.
The winters are pretty miserable, just walking to practice. Kids from Florida and California have a little bit of a hard time. Never owned a jacket before 4 months ago.
Ready? I'm gonna throw the ball in there once it hits the ground. Ready? Here!
If you measured, let's say, the top 8 at the end of the year, where they were from, the colder it gets, the tougher the guy. Now, granted, I'm a Southern California guy, so what do I know? I learned that about water, though, that it's always going to punish you here. So when you can row, you got to row.
All right, let's get one hand on, ready to shove.
Not having water until April, many other teams are racing around the country already. So we had limited water time to prepare. Carl Adam from Germany said, you won't get in shape in the boat. Because if you're in the boat and you're beginning to tire, you don't want to break the cadence and everything that's going on. Therefore, you're limiting yourself. If you go to land-based training, you're only going to fall on the ground and you're not going to hurt your other teammates. And it was crazy stuff, but it was fun. And, we just run to exhaustion.
No one's vetted for rowing as a rule. High school rowers, obviously, but not novices. They may be perfect for it. A lot of the characteristics of the athlete you want in rowing can help you in other sports. But in basketball, it's a lot more important to be able to rebound or put points on the board than it is to be able to run all day. So therefore, we're looking for guys that have never been exposed to rowing, that were born to do it.
The process begins as it always does, on a warm day in September, on the freshman registration line.
Not many people knew too much about rowing. If you asked a kid if you were recruiting, would you like to come out for the crew team or the rowing team, they'd look at you blank. They didn't know what you were talking about. My theory was always, well, let's tell them it's an Olympic sport. And, oh, rowing is an Olympic sport? They didn't know that. And you do it here at Wisconsin, and you think I'd qualify because I'm a big, tall guy, and I've played basketball, or I was a tight end in football.
I am originally from Plymouth, Wisconsin. I was born in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Summer of '99, when I had orientation at Union South, and I walked through the line and I saw Coach Greg Meyer, and I was like, what is this guy about? And he came up to me and asked if I was an athlete, and I was like, I guess so, kinda. And he asked if I'd ever heard of rowing, and I literally hadn't heard of rowing ever before that point. So I ran cross country 1 year. I never really stuck to anything besides golf. I think the occasion that was momentous was meeting Coach Meyer. That's what sticks with me. Because he called later in the summer and kind of checked in to make sure that I was coming, and I said, sure. So showed up the first orientation day, went to practice, just kept coming back. That's all it is for any freshman, just keep coming back.
Imagine 8 guys standing on a green with a ball teed up in front of them. And 167 yards away is the hole that they're driving for. And on the count of 3, or get ready, ready, all swing, all 8 guys swing and they drive a hole in 1. And they do this 40 times a minute, a hole in 1, all 8 guys, okay? That's how difficult rowing in its truest form is.
I would like to see anybody who would like to row or could be encouraged to row to be out here.
I watch with interest how these coaches on other programs follow the trend, whatever the trends are in rowing. But if you want to win, it isn't about what, how, where, why. It's about who, period. Who. If you get a who or 2, you're going to win. That's by far the most important thing.
I had a coach on the national team that he said I was coachable because he didn't have to coach me. Does that make any sense? Means the best guys you can just leave alone and they will figure it out.
That's really, when you stop to think about it, 3/8, a boatman and an assistant half-time coach managing a program that went to Europe. We arranged our own meals, our own busing. Everything had to be done by myself and the staff I had. So these guys were largely self-coached by their own drive and desire that had been built into them. They knew what they had to do and they went out to do it, which relieved our overall responsibility. We could attend to things that had to be done on the side.
The 70s is most remembered for the studs they had in the 4 years of 72, 3, 4, and 5, where they won the Tonight all 4 years.
I felt that it wasn't a big struggle to coach them. They just seemed to flow forward and do the job. That's something not too many schools or teams have done, is to sweep the national championships, yet alone to go to Henley with all 3 boats. That was, I don't know how many schools, if any others at all, have done all 3 crews like that from those years.
Do you have any doubts going into this because LIT looks strong and Northeastern?
Absolutely. We always have doubts. That's why we go flat out.
How about the race today? Did you go all out right from the start? Was there a strategy?
Absolutely. Flat out all the way. Ask Derby. He can tell you.
You think about any championship boat we've ever had here, it's always the right guys at the right time with the right attitude. Like if it's the 08 boat or the 59 boat, right guys at the right time with the right attitude.
They're all down here in Florida. Cornell's down here, MIT is down here, Penn is down here. All the big teams of the nation are down here. And we haven't done this for 18 years. It's about time we got started on it again.
It's been almost 20 years since the Wisconsin crew made a winter trip to Florida. During the past 2 decades, the crew's winter practice took place in a new campus boathouse, which includes a rowing tank. When that facility was built in 1968, it was thought that rowing indoors would provide sufficient training through the winter months.
Attaboy, Nick, dig in, you're a 6-man in there, you can move it.
But it was found that only by training on active water in an actual shell will the oarsmen develop what is called true boat sense, a necessary requirement to remain competitive.
That's leg drive, trying to get up the mountain. You'll go down.
The Sports Illustrated article was titled "Say Cheese, Wisconsin." The Badgers certainly were smiling after both the Wisconsin men's and women's varsity 8 boats won 1986 National Collegiate Rowing Championships in Cincinnati. For the first time, the men and women competed for their national titles at the same venue. The Badgers selfishly won both.
Cincinnati Regatta, 1990. Only 5 will race for the Men's Intercollegiate National Championship and the coveted Hershey Cup.
And of course, this is the exact same conditions that we had 4 years ago, Phil, when the University of Wisconsin came through and beat Harvard and everybody else. And it's a kind of day.
We asked Coach Randy Jablonski to describe his 1990 crew.
It's an experienced crew. It's a crew that has 5 seniors in it. It's a crew that has a lot of maturity, great students, better than a 3-point average for the entire team. These people are engineers, pre-med, pre-law, dedicated, very well-oriented group. They're goal-oriented. They're people that know where they're going, where they want to go, and how they're going to get there.
UW rowing in lane 4 began to take the lead around the 700-meter mark and never let go. In fact, by the time they reached 1,000 meters or so, no one was even close.
This is the time when you're going to see whether they can do it or not. It looks to me like they're going to do it.
Some Badgers competing at the NCAA Rowing Championships in Cincinnati beat 3-time defending champion Harvard today.
Wisconsin crew has won the national championship now for the 2nd time in the last 5 years. Congratulations, Jabo.
I can't express how excited I am because they not only won it, but they were devastating about doing it. They got no doubt about how powerful they were this year. That's exciting. They've been dedicated. They've had great everything it takes to be winners, and they've sure proved it today.
I mean, everybody was a highly motivated person in that group. I didn't anticipate a 73 sweep that the teams made. I didn't anticipate winning the Cincinnati Regatta. These were all steps in the process that Wisconsin made happen.
Wisconsin's bruising back talks about records, the Heisman, and more. UW's oldest sport gets ready to head into its 3rd century of competition, and a pair of local athletes live a life of inspiration.
All right, shoulders and up. Come on, JV, stay with it.
For the past 29 years, Wisconsin men's crew has been under the guidance of Randy Jablonski, who just this year handed the program over to Chris Clark. For Wisconsin's crew staff, there is no recruiting budget, no travel to seek out athletes. Recruiting at Wisconsin consists of picking freshman students out of registration lines. Unlike some of the high-profile sports, crew members aren't the most recognizable. In fact, chances are pretty good that you could pass a rower on the street and not even know it. But for all the reasons there are to join the crew, fame, fortune, and notoriety aren't among them.
This is for all the marbles. It's hotter than the 4th of July out here, and these crews are putting on a tremendous display. The Huskies, the Badgers, and the Bears have pulled open water ahead of Columbia running in 4th. The Badgers are starting to slip away from California and Washington with 700 meters to go. 39 for Wisconsin. When will Washington shift? California not in the money. The Badgers, just really clever, have gone up again. 41.5 for Wisco. 41.5, they own this race. Cal third, open water back. Woo. Wow, what a finish. The Badgers win this race. National champions.
We're the first old school, I'll call them, team that has won this championship in a long time, with 5 straight-up walk-ons, 3 guys that rode in high school. Interesting enough, this was the latest we ever got on the water on our own lake, which was April 10th. Yeah, the strongest guy in this boat is 603 on the erg, which, as you know, in a lot of boats, that's the worst guy on the erg. The 6th man, who is an impeccable rower, it's the first time he's ever been in the final of the IRA. His uncle was a 4-time IRA champion. He ran the table himself. He also was a 426 miler in high school, which is helpful.
If you have 3 who's like that, you're going to win, or you're going to be within that much. If you have the right people, you could train virtually any way you wanted. Just do 500s, a bunch of 250s, do 4 milers. It doesn't matter, because those guys are so hard. They're rare.
Finish it, though.
That boat was mentally so tough. It's unbelievable. Those guys are machines, the twins, and Derek. They won the under-23 World Championships by 5 seconds plus in Germany. That was just the easiest boat in the world to coach. When they're good, they're good.
When I needed a coach, where I was making a change, and I looked the country over, and he had everything we needed to have. I actually cut him off the national team. He was a year too soon when I was coaching national team. I couldn't quite see how to fit him in there, and I had to cut him with great I didn't know where the future would bring us, that we'd ever come together like that. If you're going to have a good coach at Wisconsin, in this day and age, you had to have somebody that knew the flavor of international experience, knew the people, other coaches around the country. The only thing he didn't have, which he kind of patched up, he didn't have a Wisconsin background, but he married a Wisconsin girl. Yes. Super guy, classy.
He yelled a lot.
Let's move it up, Alex. We can't even video. You're too slow. Move it up. Take the tailwind and go. Should win this by 4 lengths. Don't just sit there. Do something.
He was very fiery, and everything needed to be a specific way. And if it wasn't up to snuff, he would let you know. And like if you messed up, he would let you know.
I didn't think Bo was that great. It's the irony. I'm harsh, like I said. I'm super harsh in my evaluation. He was about the 5th or 6th best freshman in his boat. It takes a while to convince me that you're good.
He can make practices fun, and he can make practice, like if he's joking around, he can make practices fun, and maybe lean into one guy.
Ready, looking good, baby.
Or he can make practices miserable and make the entire boat do twice as much work if it's not going well. The dawn of the 1,000 down, which everybody knows about now, that's my age or younger, that came about because somebody questioned his coaching. We were in Newville, and it was cold and windy and miserable. One of the guys thought he was trying to kill us. And he asked him if he was trying to kill us, and he said, if I was trying to kill you, you'd be dead. And then we got back in the cars and went back to the boathouse and did that 1,000 down workout. And everybody got through it. So it's just understanding who's what the point is and who's in charge and what's demanded of you. I don't know how many times my senior year I ruined the season. Probably four times my senior year I ruined the season. And he was right every time. So
we haven't won this thing since 1990. It's been a long time. And it's Hope it's not 18 years again, but it could be. Those are such great teams. And we had an opening and we took it.
You know, we've gone back and looked. How do we get all those guys that were so good at one time?
How we do it, it's hard because you're relying on development of guys over 3 years and 9 months.
When you're relying on novices, it's not like regular recruiting where you might get, by design, 3 or 4 great classes in a row. Because of the nature of our model, you need 4 or 5 years of classes to get a few difference makers.
And there will be somebody in each class that sticks out. There always is at least one guy that's a novice that sticks out, that shows that they can do it. And when you get 3, 4 novices like that, those guys will push the guys that have rowed in high school to be better also.
Most importantly, you want guys who, while they're here, are obsessed with being good. It's not easy to be a rower, and you have to make that choice. So it requires all these things that have to line up perfectly. If you want to win, you need the athletes. It's no fun to send out mid-teams constantly, but that's where we've been. Because there's nothing about these guys that is mid, nothing. They're top of line in every way. These are the smartest guys. They're super ethical. They never get in trouble. Grades are better than ever. But competitively, nobody does what we do now. Nobody. As I like to say, if our model was the most successful one now, then everybody'd be doing it. But no one's doing it because sports has changed so much. However, if you get guys like that class of 03, you can compete anyway. In Bo's era, 2002, we lost to Cal by a half a length, and they had 6 guys that had already been in the Olympics. Not going to the Olympics, been in the Olympics in 2000. And had I been even a little more clever then, maybe we could have closed that gap, but by 08, we were ready. When Jabba was here, the sport started to change. The first internationals came in around the late 80s. I think it was at Penn and Northeastern, and they won in those eras.
You know, you call them internationals, but they're basically finished products. They're not finished, but they're really good. Most of them have, you know, international racing experience, if not, you know, high-level national experience.
If you looked at, say, the 48 guys rowing in the 6-boat championship, there was probably 20 internationals in there. Now it's 40. But it doesn't matter. What matters is the time.
The time at the IRA is still the same as it was back in the late 90s. It's just getting to that speed. But you need the right guys at the right time with the right attitude.
If you row 5:30, you're going to win the IRA. And we rode 5:31. You know what the winning time of the IRA was this year? 5:31. That's it. You row around 5:30, you're going to win no matter what. That has not changed. What has changed is 5:35 and under teams. There's more of them.
That's kind of stepped up the competition, even from the middle boats, 3V. We're never going to win a 3V or a 2V ever again in this current model. The only chance we ever have is top end if we get the right guys. If you're bringing in 35 international rowers and they all buy in, there's going to be a distribution of them throughout, you know, 3, 4, 8s. And then you'll get boats that are going sub 540 in the third 8. It's happened. You can understand from the international oarsman's perspective also that why they'd want to do that. This is probably the best competition. Some people would say that it's harder to win an IRA than it is to win an Olympic gold medal. But you can see why they'd want to row in the IRA League or in the Eastern Sprints League, because the competition is really good and you're training these guys to go back to whatever country they're from and race for their country. And they've been at peak competition for 4 years without having to pay a dime. That's a pretty sweet deal. I don't blame them for taking it. Why wouldn't you? And if one team's doing it, why wouldn't you do it? Just because we're on the outside of it doesn't mean we need to be, you know, bitter about it. It's just something you accept and go forward. That's Wisconsin rowing. Accept and move forward.
We're running a 19th century model here, which is super nostalgic. You notice I said 19th century. We literally run it the way we ran it in 1890s. That's what we need to change here. But there's a lot to that. It isn't desire or interest. There's other forces at work.
We're not going to get some kid who's rowed at under 23 Worlds or the Olympics or something like that to come here for free.
What's the distinguishing marker between D3 and D1? The most important one, scholarships. That's it.
The NCAA, it does not regulate men's crew. We're not a member of the NCAA. That gives each university the potential to decide how many scholarships it wants. Because we have no ceiling for scholarships, we can't have scholarships. That's how they come down on the question. Other schools have said, well, we're not regulated, therefore we can have any number of scholarships.
Kids don't even believe we don't have scholarships. They think you're lying to them. BU, North, they have 20 scholarships. If you had that, they wouldn't even go to foreign guys. They go to reward guys here and also attract. Novice guy, Antoni, super stud. All right, come here and then you'll earn a scholarship. Until that decision is reconsidered and made right, you can't compete at the highest level.
You can hope and pray that you get scholarships one day, but right now we got to live in reality. And this is the best option we have to be competitive, is just to drag a huge net across the state of Wisconsin and Minnesota and Illinois and hope you get some fish that can swim with you. So that's why we're always looking for as many people that are tall at SOAR, 350 contacts at SOAR. We're trying to get 140 to show up at open houses. We're trying to get at least 100 to be there the first day. We're trying to get 80 to do the genetic. I don't know where it's going to go in the next 5-10 years. But like, we're just relying on luck with the way we're recruiting now. We're trying to recruit more before they get to school. We're going to send letters out this week to anybody that I can get a height and weight of in the state of Wisconsin that plays sports. You send 8,000 letters a year, you're going to get maybe 80 responses. And of those 80, maybe a dozen will make it into school here on their own if they don't have help.
Many people, it's so obscure, it was difficult to break that down and introduce them to it, because you're not rowing for fame and fortune. It wasn't in the top of the news always. It was very easy to forget about it.
Sometimes it's word of mouth. Sometimes it's like Adam, you find him when he's a junior and he comes to a one-day camp and he's got offers to play D2, D3 ball somewhere, but he wants to come to Madison because it's a better opportunity. Come to a D1 institution, play a sport. The guys that we know are good athletes, that we know if they're a three-sport athlete, we know it's going to be easy for them to do this sport. Those are the kinds of guys we're looking for.
There are great athletes out there that would like to participate if you could only let them know that it's available. The university should be an open opportunity, but it isn't open if you can't expose people to that opportunity. There has to be a way to try to figure out to get around the obstacles.
The pandemic kind of hit us hard because we weren't allowed to have a novice class.
We were in survival mode. There was more than once I felt this team was going to get cut, and that was one of them.
A lot of sacrifices were made by a lot of people in order to preserve all 23 teams who came through on the other side. There's only 2 guys left from that class that they're seniors this year.
It definitely contracted our team. I'm happy we were able to make it through, but that gave them a reason to cut our squad size. For years we were 80, we were even 90 one year. So when you go from 80 to 52, where we are today, we're getting strangled on talent.
With restrictions on numbers, you have to go through so many freshmen to find the ones that fit the sport. If you don't have a big enough pool, we're cutting our leg off, so to speak. We're not going to have the success we want. As a coach, you can't promote success because you have to seek or sift through.
The hope is that when we get, 4 full complements of classes, that the team will sort of be back to normal. We've been essentially missing an entire boat class since 2019.
The NCAA and nation's Power 5 conferences have reached a deal to pay their athletes. The ACC, Big Ten, Big 12, SEC, and Pac-12 accepted the general terms of a settlement that will see the NCAA pay nearly $2.8 billion in damages over 10 years.
Yeah, this is the death of amateurism, which has basically been on the books forever in college athletics. So it is a significant milestone. As far as who gets what, that's all that's going to have to be sussed out at the institution level. And it's going to be quite a, I think, a process to get to those deliberations.
Kids are going to make money in college. They're going to get paid soon. They're already paid NIL, but it's going to be straight up. And in that environment, you think, all right, what can we do?
It's not just the baseball and the gymnastics that are suffering. It's going to hurt everybody. We're all a team. We're all together as one. There's other ways of doing this, other ways of funding.
This noon, UW athletes massed in force. The careers of gymnasts, fencers, and baseball players are on the university's budget chopping block. Much of the crew budget is also on the line. The athletic department claims it will save $800,000 by axing the 5 sports.
Pat Richter, the athletic director, played on the baseball team here. It's really hard to believe that he would come up with cutting baseball, a sport that's America's pastime.
Like, what happened to baseball?
It's gone. Do you see anything relating to baseball around campus here? Their sport's gone. There's barely any trace of their existence on campus. That's the same thing that would happen to rowing.
They had gymnastics here. They had boxing. Those sports are just whispered about in hushed tones. They don't exist. And it won't be long, they're all older, that the last survivors will be gone. And literally it won't exist.
But in the long term, as we look back on the history, we will damn the moments of 1991 when we were so short-sighted as to sell out for a couple of bucks here or there and destroy the wonderful educational process that we have that is well-rounded.
Yeah, that was a scary time. Doing well, I wasn't sure would ensure keeping the rowing program alive. Money was in short supply. It was a struggle to try to spread the good word that rowing was a wonderful sport. The greatest battle ensued by Wisconsin alumni to save it. Went on to drop baseball and gymnastics, and you would have thought that baseball would add more people to argue than what crew did, but crew people really got behind that.
I've talked to an old coaching friend of mine who was from Washington, and just about what's happening here. And he says they already moved beyond securing the future of Washington for as long as there's Washington sports. They did that a long time ago, and that's kind of what we're in the middle of right now. And big campaign, keep rowing for another 150 years. All they're concerned about is how competitive they are. That's it. We're not even to that next point. Not even close. We're still on the let's find our solid ground, endow the program, which I believe is the future. Is this a way we're not going to pack the stadium, we're not going to get a TV contract, but we can support ourselves by having our own endowments. And the only reason in athletics anything happens, positive or negative, is money. It's a business, and they know it, and we know it, and which I have no problem with. It's an incredible business. Every single person here should be an enormous Badger football fan and want its success. But the legacy fund will ensure a future.
We're probably the most well-funded, just from the athletic department, team in our league. Like, they give us all the support, but if that goes away ever, there's not going to be money to support a program like rowing or a program like track and field, that there's no revenue coming in.
With this new NCAA model, we're at an inflection point, and we're going to go one of two ways. We're going to either go into the future and get with the times, or we're going to go with the past and what we have done and fizzle out. Just like any team, you need everybody to contribute. And I think that this 150th is happening now for a reason, to bring us all together.
Our legacy is why we're still here anyway. There's no other Big Ten men's varsities. It's only recently now there's even rowing teams here, at least in the last 20 or 30 years, high school. It's incredible. It's a testament to all the alums that have gone before that we are here. And it shows you how strong we are. However, we don't want to be just strong. We want to be invulnerable and want our part in modern athletics.
This drive to endow the program will ensure that we're around for the next 150 years. This program has a way of finding the driven people, the guys that want to become something. I mean, if you can pick up a sport 3 years and 9 months ago and take it all the way to the national championships, you can do anything. That progresses past college, past rowing, and your professional life.
I'd like to be in a position where I could do more things for rowing, but I probably had my shift in it, and I've done my job, and I support in any way, other way I can, moral or otherwise, I would. Association is a fine conclusion to a life that has been productive and enjoyable, and that's a great pleasure to do that, making other lives happy, and we kind of lose some of that. I think today's society is too protective in some ways and not protective enough in other ways. We don't have a good, sensible balance, it seems. But if I can take my 88 years or whatever I'm going on and help somebody else see the handwriting on the wall, I'd like to do that.
The one thing I would say to the alumni is that the type of individual that comes through here hasn't changed. They're still hardworking. They're still looking for a challenge. They leave knowing that this was the best experience at that point to their life. There's commonality between what we're doing now and what we did back then, and that's what binds all the guys that have come through this program together, that shared experience. That's why I want alumni to come back. That's why I have that open invitation to anybody that wants to ride in the launch. They want to hear, good or bad, from the guys that have come before them, like what it was like and what it is like after.
That's the one thing I wanted to see stay, that rowing would contribute to your future success in life. You'd leave college knowing how to fit things together in your life. You could have other goals outside of the workplace. You make better judgments overall because your experiences had a better base.
Bo has some real strengths that I don't have. It's going to be great to see what he does, and he's right in the sweet spot of head coaching, and it's perfect for him.
It's a real gift to Wisconsin to have a man that has his talents and achievements become the leader of the men's program. I think that's exciting, and look forward to his success. And any way that I could contribute, if I could, I would, because I'm proud to be a part of Wisconsin. And I think he's got everything it takes to become an equal part of Wisconsin.
150 years, that's kind of insane when you think about it. Here's to another 150 or 500 or however long college sports goes. Just got to keep pushing on and don't be satisfied for status quo.